Hello, everybody. So glad to be back with you guys in regards to bringing you this happy Labor Day to all of you. We labor hard for what we have and what we earn. The grind is appreciated. If you work today like I did, we could appreciate that. Sometimes that's just how it is. Let's jump into today's Stellar, Swift, and even some other key updates that you weren't aware of. Soroban. Let's jump into it all and why it matters. I want to give a special shout out with thanks and appreciation to the one and only Rue Black at Black Rue over on YouTube and X, and also the one and only Underdog of the Underdog Researcher channel. They have done a fantastic job of talking about Swift and the connections, in particular Draper. So, without further ado, talked about Draper. Is there an update? And if anything, was it posted by Stellar? The answer is yes. Dropped today. Where am I going with this? Check it out for yourself. You're going to want to stick around to the end of the outline because you're going to hear about how there's a particular company that has brought to the table things like Coinbase and how, if anything, on average, they have produced like a 3x as an incubator or a turbocharged system to help startups. Before Coinbase, there was Y Combinator. Yes, they've been around since 2005. And I'll get more into that. But you want to stick around to the end of the outline. You're going to want to hear about some of these key ones and why they matter. So, let's talk about it. Here it is, straight from Stellar, posted earlier today. And yes, as promised, they talk about Draper. Now, why is this so important? Well, in the past, we talked about Stellar a few months ago, citing Draper. As we know, Draper is one of the top venture capital firms out there. They built Silicon Valley, but this is Stellar posting once again in regards to Draper. So, gonna full screen this, gonna jump into material. Listen to why this is so crucial, especially if you own Stellar and, of course, Swiftcoin. So, thought this was really something else because for Stellar to post from Draper University these statements about the enduring companies being built by enduring founders pounds home everything of what Underdog has been bringing to you guys, and also, of course, the one and only Rue Black. So it's the portfolios. How's your portfolio doing? Is it down? Is it up? Are you going to hodl through crypto winter, or have, I should say, or going forward when it comes to the bull market? But yesterday, their founders had the opportunity to meet this guy and learn from the legendary Michael Heinrich. And I will show you a little bit more about his connections in a bit, but I do want to read this because this is good stuff. I know it's verbatim, but sometimes we don't want to skip over this. So, Michael Heinrich, operator, investor, founder with a prolific footprint in a startup ecosystem. He had a previous founder and CEO, or I should say he was, over at Garten. And this part about YC, we'll get into that. S16 alumni, previously instructor and mentor at Stanford University. Remember how I talked about Stanford? I'll show that video with you guys a while back. I'll put it at the end because you're going to want to watch that deep dive if you're new. A lot of you guys are old school, been around this channel for a while, already seen it. But it's just to name a few. And man, when I talk about name a few, there's the other connections to other people that literally had their work featured in internet museums. I'm going to show you some screenshots in that regard. But this guy has a unique insight into the founder's journey. The Hacker House founders, if you're aware of them, gained valuable knowledge from his experiences and then his other connections. So he was part of this thing called the Growth Phase Gauntlet, fundraising from A-tier VC funds. And that should be your highlight for today. It's A-tier VC funds, whether it's Draper, whether it's some of these other ones that were connectors for VC capital, right? Venture capital means the same thing. Hiring, leading diverse teams, more than 650 plus people. But here's a little bit more of what he's done. Successful exits and mentoring, built 2 unicorns, became an investor, did the whole thing of teaching early stage entrepreneurs fundamental startups and founder principles backed by years of experience and, of course, war stories. As we know, when it comes to some of the Drapers, the great grandfather Draper served in not World War II, my bad. He served in Korea, right? He's up there in age, but we can respect that this guy's been around, right? And some of the other Drapers have been around for a very, very long time too. Look what it goes on to also mention. Currently, this particular guy, Mr. Heinrich, building zero gravity labs, which, if you're not aware of that, it is the fastest modular AI chain, starting with programmable DA layer for AI dApps, and they raised $35 million in pre-seeding to build much needed infrastructure. So, a lot to be shown here, and to blow it up a little bit more, you see some of the pictures. I don't know, everybody very enthusiastic. And of course, you see them there, and it's highlighted from Draper University. All right, so that's what we're pointing out. As we get more into the material, here's more about Michael Heinrich. He has a massive following. He's, got 252,000 followers. But when we get more into his connections, it mentions some of these things and it has you go down the rabbit hole. At least it did for me, because he's a top, YC Combinator investor, et cetera, right? And that's definitely worth pointing out. So, that led me to this, and that is Y Combinator. 1.3 million followers. They help founders make something people want. Now, if you're old school, you already know the Coinbase connection. Everything, I don't care what it is, has a start at some point. So why am I mentioning this? Because Y Combinator, everybody, is basically what helped leapfrog Coinbase. And when you really think about that in itself, that is huge. That is absolutely huge, because what we want to see is, okay, who can help Stellar leapfrog themselves? We already talked about who can help SwiftCoin, Swift Blockchain leapfrog themselves. But the underlying factors is who is part of that bigger picture. It's VC funding, whether it's from Draper, whether it's from these guys, right? The incubators, if you will. Jumping more into this, you will see that these guys are really, truly a big deal. So I decided to get more into it because this is what I do. And if you go to ycombinator.com, it shows some of the top companies, but they have funded 5,000 startups since 2005. They're not a new thing. Includes many that have become household names. Let's face it, Coinbase is a household name. You see them literally listed here, and there's some other ones I want to talk about. But here are the YC companies with the highest revenue, of course, in 2023. And let's face it, they mention Airbnb. Who doesn't know about them by now? They mention, for example, some of these other ones I know about. CheckR, Infrastructure for the Future World, of course, Coinbase, DoorDash, Dropbox. Goes on to mention some of these other ones, right? Like, for example, Grub Market. I know about Gusto. I'm going further down into some other examples. Okay. Let's go down to Razor Pay, Reddit. I use Reddit for my utility tool belt of research. X, Reddit. I go to some other particular places, Discord. Okay. But the bottom line is, these are some huge names. Zapier, right? So that's really, really cool to see some of this. All right, let's talk about this for a second, okay? So this video example says, inside the most powerful startup community in the world. This was posted a year ago, but again, when you see in the description, and I'll full screen it back again, talks about how Y Combinator is well known for producing companies like Airbnb, Coinbase, etc. But what's the real story behind this success and what they fund? I like this. I like the idea that Stellar is connected to this. And I like the idea that Draper has been connected to this. And I like the idea that through Draper, you have SwiftCoin. So it's like, again, another perfect example of owning both. So I thought I'd give you guys this. This is 6 minutes. Very well put together video. And then we'll come back and show you some other connections on why this is a big deal, and even give you some new updates from the Stellar Community Fund and why that's important to connect the whole darn shebang. Smash a like if you haven't done so already. Let's get into the material. Thank you so much for listening on Labor Day. Here we go.
In 2005, 4 people came together to make something new. They thought, if we bring together smart technologists and give them a little bit of money and a really good community, it would give founders a huge advantage. And out of that first Y Combinator batch came startups that continue to touch hundreds of millions of people. Starting a company would never be the same again. Not so lonely, and also not so fraught. You do it together with all the other most eminent people of your generation starting companies too. Today, Y Combinator funds hundreds of companies at a time, and it's the only place in the world that produces generational companies like Stripe, Airbnb, Coinbase, and a whole lot more, again and again and again. That's not normal, but nothing about YC really is. YC is the most powerful startup community in the world. So what's the secret? What's it like to be at YC? And is it right for you? I know it was right for me. Let's get started. YC is the only place in the world I've seen where a startup founder can learn to move at the speed they need to. Here's what Brian Chesky of Airbnb said about speeding up.
We basically decided for 3 months, Nate would move from Boston to San Francisco, and we'd wake up at 8 o'clock. We go to bed at midnight, 7 days a week, and we work from 8 to midnight every single day. And that dedication for 3 to 4 months created this real serious rhythm where we weren't doing other things. We were totally focused.
The goal of YC, the entire reason why we exist, is to help startups really take off. For 3 months, it's all startups all the time. Everyone around you, group partners and the other founders in your batch, the alumni, the speakers, we all want to help you succeed at your startup. That kind of speed up Airbnb got out of YC is something you can't buy. You can't get it from an investment round or going to a tech startup conference. Moving fast is just one part of the game. YC is the best place in the world to learn how to get product market fit, which is that magical moment where your startup goes from idea to a reality that could set the world on fire. Being able to make your way through the idea maze, pivoting when it makes sense, listening to what the market and your customers are telling you, and finding product market fit are all things that I think YC is unusually good at. In fact, finding a billion-dollar market of this sort has already happened at YC over 90 times. So how do you actually do it? How do you start a startup and get product market fit and then have it touch 1 billion people? It turns out when you're surrounded by people who have built things, magic happens. At YC, you get a bunch of things that add up to a big deal. First, you get dedicated group partners who have worked with hundreds of companies and started companies of their own. When you see that much, you can do a lot to prevent unforced errors. The partners can spot patterns of success and failure and provide personalized advice in office hours, on Slack, and through a written startup manual that only YC founders get access to. Then you get brilliant batchmates, other startup founders who are learning right beside you, and you'll learn so much from them. Smart people who have already tackled similar challenges, and they're there to help you get ahead. And it's not just your batch. You get access to the YC alumni, of which there are over 9,000 now in the world. Almost every geography, every sector, and every kind of go-to-market has a YC alum who has been there, done that, and could help you. You'll meet both batchmates and alumni through our private social network online called Bookface. 1 in 3 YC alums use it every single day, and it's home to the most pressing technical and business questions out there, things that you won't be able to Google to find out. The founder directory makes it easy to ask any alum for advice and intros, and the company directory makes it easy to find customers. YC is always evolving, and we've added tons of programs to help your startup. YC is more than just a 3-month program. Programs like Work at a Startup have sent over 150,000 candidates to startups that went through YC and placed more than 1,000 employees so far. Finally, of course, YC gives you money. It's $125,000 for 7% and a $375,000 uncapped safe with MFN on top. So a total of $500,000, which is plenty to help you get to product market fit to that next level. On top of that, you get over $500,000 worth of deals only for YC startups. Discounts and offers on everything from hosting, cloud services, and almost everything you need to run your business. YC is great for early teams right when you're ready to get started. You don't need a demo or first version of the product, but it often helps. I want you to apply to Y Combinator. We help founders make something people love, and the results show. A crazy double-digit percentage of the companies that matter apply to YC, and 66% of those companies had YC as their very first investor. So there's no such thing as too early for us. You can apply at ycombinator.com/apply. If you ask me, that's the one URL that has created more wealth and prosperity than any other than I can think of in the world. It changed my life, and I hope we get a chance to change yours too.
All right, really cool video, right? You might not have ever been aware of some of these ones that helped ones like Airbnb, Coinbase, more importantly, and so on. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it to you guys. Now, of course, I looked more into YC, a little bit more further, and decided to get more into the weeds of why it's important. Check this out. Let's take you over to a Wikipedia entry. And basically speaking, it's the history of Y Combinator, and if anything, why, any of this is worth wrapping our heads around. So it's the history, founded back in 2005 by the Grahams, which is Paul Graham, Jessica Livingston, who end up marrying Paul Graham, and there's also Robert Tappan Morris. Is understanding that you have some of these people that are part of some big things, like even MIT, right? And when we talk about the Drapers, you will see that they have, for example, the managing of 2 programs prompted by consolidation in January 2009, again, before Bitcoin, but it resulted in the closing of Cambridge program and the centralization of activities in Silicon Valley. Again, is it not a surprise to see the Silicon Valley connection to the Drapers? Again, when we talk about venture capital, the Drapers really stand out. So to see these guys stand out with the mix, you can understand how there would be collaboration, of course, with even the Drapers, right? But when I got more into this, I decided to look more into Robert Tappan Morris. Now, why is that? Well, for one, it's what it mentions in regards to his robust background. Computer scientist and entrepreneur. Look at this. Most of us did not know that he was best known for creating the Morris worm in 1988, considered the first computer worm on the internet. Now, sounds bad, but sometimes you need people that are hackers, if you will, create exploits for you can test and, if anything, future-proof security. Look at this. This is what he created a long time ago, amongst other things, okay? But this in itself created what is called the hex dump, a blaster worm showing a message left for Microsoft CEO Bill Gates by the worm's creator. Who's this guy? Yeah, this guy. And this is highlighted, showcased at the Computer History Museum, which is in Mountain View, California. Imagine that, all right? That's something. I mean, I at least think it is. Look at this for a second. The Morris Internet Worm source code. It shows this old floppy disk being showcased there, right? It says this tiny 99 line program brought large pieces of the internet to a standstill on November 2nd, 1988. I mean, we're talking about like the beginning stages of the internet, okay? So, this guy did have to serve time, I believe, and then he did probation. But if you go back to it, look at his education. Harvard University. He also has a PhD there, and he's currently, from my understanding, a professor, I believe, I think even at MIT, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. I could have read that somewhere. So that was really, really interesting, okay? As I got more into the whole thing, I decided to get into, I guess you could say, the weeds of, a little bit more about him. And you will see if you go over to a little bit more of, what he's all about and so on. It goes on to mention that he was part of a bigger project, if you will, but he contributed to early versions of Unix, including the math library. So, that's also a big deal. And of course, he began work at the NSA back in 1986. So this guy knows stuff. He knows a lot of stuff, right? And I did see on his biography, I don't have that set up for you guys, but it does mention, things of like him being a professor and so on. So a lot of deep connections here. All right, so where do we go from here as far as the Stellar connection? Well, this is really good. Over on Stellar, literally posted August 30th, just a couple days ago, right? It mentions about SCF Kickstart, formerly Startup Camp. Now live. Get your Stellar project ready for the community fun with expert advice and collaboration. Again, collaboration. So to see them basically cite Draper University in that collaboration, which led us down the rabbit hole of Y Combinator, you can understand how this all comes together. I mean, it literally is being spelled out for us. Okay? So it talks about a collaboration, a call to action, how there's a deadline on September 15th for a virtual program that will even run, from September 30th to the 4th of October. But again, Stellar Community Fun. Now, here's what's also very, very interesting. Okay? So that moment you've been waiting for. If you go back to ycombinator.com, aka YC, remember how that gentleman said that they help founders or help businesses and other startups take it to the next level? Well, it says that they help make something people want. The results speak for themselves. Again, when we talk about Soroban, everybody, understand that Stellar wants to make the blockchain platform that people want, what they need, and it has to be something that's user-friendly, and they do pound that home. Look what it also mentions. They help founders at the early stages regardless of their age. 54% of YC's billion-dollar companies had no revenue when they applied. Interesting. 52% of YC's billion-dollar company founders were under 28 years old, and the oldest founder was in their 50s. Remember those demographics we studied in the past? How Gen Z represents a slightly largest portion of the pie of demographics for Web3 moving forward, or people that hold crypto or innovators and so on. Just throwing it out there. Not saying that they represent 50%, but they do hold the biggest piece of the pie. 42% of YC's billion-dollar companies applied with only an idea, but they improve the success rate of startups. And I like this because Soroban is not fully rolled out. This is the connector that we have been studying, if you will. 39% of YC companies have raised a Series A. 18% of YC companies are valued at $100 million plus. 4% of YC companies have become billion-dollar companies. I mean, those are some pretty impressive stats on the resume. And this other part, they give startups huge fundraising advantages. Say what you want. This is the connector, because when you saw Stellar Community Fund mention this, you can understand that how this makes sense for them to collaborate with YC or even Draper or both, right? It's, these guys know somebody, we know somebody, let's all collaborate. But to see the idea that YC has companies that raise money at 2.5 times higher valuation after participating in their program, that speaks volumes. The median YC company raises 1.3 million to 14 million valuation cap after participating in the program. Again, back to that Stellar reference. Top 10% of YC companies raise 1.8 million to 20 million valuation cap after just participating in the program. And it gets better. Their companies have a track record of becoming billion-dollar companies. Now, don't get me wrong, Stellar is really worth about $2.5 billion as we speak. But to see the expression or the stats on the site from YC about how they funded 90 plus billion-dollar companies, and 66% of them were companies that had YC as their first investor. I mean, think about it. Coinbase, right? And look where Coinbase is at now. if anything, where will Coinbase go from here? It's just going to keep going higher and higher and higher. And here's your moment you've been waiting for. Just like you saw in the thumbnail, YC companies have an average $15 billion market cap at the time of public exit, 3 times higher than average. Makes sense to collaborate with somebody like this. All right, back to Stellar. Straight from the update 2 days ago, Kickstart your Web3 idea. Transform your blockchain idea to a market-ready product with Kickstart. Or if anything, through the collaboration of something like YC. The revamped SCF Startup Camp. This 5-day virtual program provides expert guidance from mentors that will help you turn your idea into a proof of concept. Top teams will be awarded 15,000 XLM to bring their vision to life. Doesn't seem like much, but if anything, it's a call to action. And on top of that, Kickstart, the next big idea, let's turn it into reality. The collaboration with Draper, the collaboration with YC, and some of these guys connected to it, whether it's, for example, Michael, Heinrich, and so on, you can understand that they have collaborated. Why would they go to publish this and share it and get it out there? They want us to use their brain. They want us to have us dig through the rabbit hole of this. But for me, personally, I see the writing on the wall. This is a call to action. They want to see things like Soroban get that kickstart that they need. All right, a little bit more about this. So we talked about a 3x. Again, back to this, just in case you mixed it. 3x higher than average. So when we get into, for example, Stellar, if you go to CMC as we currently speak, Stellar sits under 10 cents. It is at about $2.7 billion market cap. But here's the thing. Okay, this 3 times this amount would get you to roughly about $15 billion market cap. Okay, give or take, slightly under that, so 14 point something. Do we have anything in regards to market cap that would be close to that? Well, basically, it would be Dogecoin. I hate that you always use this, you know, I did on the last couple of videos from Quant and Hedera, but yeah, it's Dogecoin. Okay. So we have something to go off of. All right, so here's the thing. XLM, with the market cap of Doge, would bring the price of XLM to about 48 cents, which would be about 5.30x. I'm not into XLM to make 49 cents. But at the same time, I can understand that projects building on Soroban and so on, they want to expand their ecosystem. So short term, we may see some things, you know, and when we get the bull market going for a change, this could very well age well. I am not a fortune teller, but I can connect 2 and 2, and this simply makes sense to me. Stellar has a call to action to build out this ecosystem, and you better believe they want to be well connected with the Drapers. Obviously, for them to share this now twice, the writing is on the wall. And for we to also see this company, which is YC, Y Combinator, part of the mix, because they're also part of Silicon Valley, that is absolutely huge. That is obviously a big deal. And if anything, I am so glad to be able to bring it to you guys, because it lets me know that Silicon Valley is here to stay. But more importantly, for Stellar SWFT to also have those connections to Silicon Valley and the big players, whether it's the Drapers or the incubators, precursors to Coinbase, if you will, the ones that help them leapfrog themselves. I'm going to follow the smart money, but I'm going to follow whatever had a start to get to where? The finish line. I root for all of you guys to make it to the finish line. If you listen to this outline tonight, do me a favor and simply type in YC, and I will know that you listened to the outline. Happy Labor Day to all of you. Know what you have, know what you hold. The research trumps FUD 110%. We'll see you on the next one.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Say goodbye to complicated setups and hello to Decent Wallet, the hassle-free solution to your digital currency needs. With just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.